Coming up on this edition of Cogeco News, the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. Keep it tuned right here for live counsel right after this newscast. And battalion fans have this to look forward to. Welcome inside the Your TV studio for this Tuesday edition of Cogeco News. Truly local, my name is Clark Heipel. North Bay City Council goes virtual tonight, and you can watch it live right here on Your TV beginning at 6:30 p.m. right after the news. For the first time in the municipality's history, the meeting will be done over video conference. This, of course, due to the coronavirus pandemic. One of the items up for discussion and likely debate is the tax rate increase, which is pegged just north of 2.6% when comparing it to a year prior.
I think there was some confusion for sure. So as you would know, covering council, we passed that budget on December 12th, 2019. And then the levy was about 5%. So as you know, all the media picked up the story. The motion that's before council tonight really is just the tax ratios from that budget that was approved unanimously by council. And everybody thought their taxes were going up 5%, as you remember back in December. And we were trying to say, no, that's just the levy. We won't know till all the ratios are done. So that report ended up in the report that's public, and it seemed, I think some people thought there was another budget that got passed increasing taxes, but that wasn't the case. This is really just the analysis and ratios from December 2019, and with the education portion factored in, taxes weren't going up 5% like everybody thought. It was only 1.8%, and in that there was like we're hiring more police officers. That was what the community wanted. We're doing Castle Home rebuild, investment in our infrastructure and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it did create some confusion.
There are plenty of pressures on the city budget right now with the lack of revenue coming in and the economy really slowed down. Some numbers concerning Jack Arlen Airport costing the city $200,000 a month in city transit. What's being done to kind of mitigate these costs?
So for the airport, it's up to $200,000. So I spoke with the airport manager again this morning. There's some months that, the revenue shortage, because there's really virtually no flying except like medevacs or courier services. Passenger services has fallen off a cliff. So there is a shortfall for sure. We can't afford to close the airport with the base being here, with medevacs coming in, courier. We have 65 mining companies that really depend on the airline. So we don't want to even close the airport for 3 or 4 months. Because it sends the wrong signal to business and industry that, hey, maybe North Bay is not as accessible as we need it to be if we're going to be located here. We have almost 350 people work in the aviation industry up at the airport, and those medevacs, for medical reasons, is really important that we keep the airport running. So yeah, there is a cost, and this pandemic is hitting all governments around the world, including businesses. On the transit front, there is a cost because we're not collecting revenue as people get in the buses. One, to protect our bus drivers because their health and safety is paramount. And secondly, it does assist our citizens.
Staffing levels, is that reviewed on a weekly basis or a daily basis?
I think it's always part of any conversation. So as you know, we unfortunately had to lay off about 80 people when the pandemic hit, and we're not hiring any summer students, which really impacts them. If they're going to go on to post-secondary education, so there is a savings there as well. I will say though, the city is running very efficiently. We've canceled all discretionary spending. We still have to provide the services that our citizens expect. Like we have to make sure the roads and sidewalks are safe.
And live counsel at 6:30. Despite COVID-19, both North Bay paramedics and North Bay Regional Health Center staff want people to know they are both there to help with personal health crisis. Greg Estabrooks is standing by near the hospital with this update. Greg.
Representatives from Nipissing's Paramedic Service and the North Bay Regional Health Center behind me want to alert the public that if there is an emergency situation, do not hesitate to call 911 or come to the hospital. Heart attacks, strokes, broken limbs are all going to happen whether there's a pandemic ongoing or not. Staff and physicians at the North Bay Regional Health Center want the community to know that they are still available to patients for urgent health care needs and emergencies unrelated to the COVID-19 pandemic. NBRHC Emergency Department Manager Joan Brazo says that while the community is doing its part to support our healthcare system as it prepares to respond to COVID-19, patients shouldn't hesitate to seek treatment at the hospital. Brazo adds, please don't delay receiving care because you are worried about COVID-19. Our healthcare center is prepared to safely provide care to all our patients. That's also the message from Stephen Merkley, the manager of Nipissing Paramedic Services. He says if you have an emergency and need help, please don't hesitate to call 911. But Merkley says they are asking the community to be open and honest about their symptoms when calling 911 for the safety and protection of paramedics and first responders. To make sure we can safely provide care, Merkley says, they ask that you let us know if the person needing help has a fever, a new onset of cough, or difficulty breathing. We also need to know if that person has been in close contact with anyone who has an acute respiratory illness or COVID-19 suspected or probable case in the last 14 days. In saying that, he says, still call if you need us. This information will help the teams safely prepare care for you.
Meanwhile, Dr. Neil Marahaj is one of Ontario's foremost experts when it comes to respiratory care. In part 2 of his discussion with our Greg Asterbrooks, the Niagara Falls doctor talks in more specific terms about COVID-19 and its impact on Ontarians today and in the future.
Well, the origin of the virus in China, there's theories and hypotheses of how it originated, but it seems to be a hybrid virus from a coronavirus. Coronavirus is a virus that we've known about for many, many years. It affects the respiratory symptom, but because of genetic recombination, a new virus is formed. And so it's caused a myriad of effects in the lungs that we know for sure, obviously. There's also been many reports that other effects outside of the lungs are also noted. People have GI symptoms or stomach-related symptoms. Some neurologic symptoms have also been reported. And so it's causing a lot of morbidity and mortality all over the world. And we're still trying to unravel how exactly it's manifesting many of these effects.
When you don't know exactly how to attack it, what do you do to prevent it? So you can't prevent it. Social distancing is great, but once that ends, the virus is still going to be around, isn't it, Doctor?
The virus is going to still be around, and so it further emphasizes the critical importance of physical distancing, hand washing. But as you've probably read about, Greg, in the media, there are other strategies that are still coming down the pipeline. A vaccine is about 12 to 18 months away, we think. But there are other strategies, including different antibody testings that may be useful. For example, you can imagine that if a person had an antibody test readily available, he or she would know if they've been exposed to the virus or not, and that may actually allow them to return to work, for example, or participate in something where social distancing cannot be adhered to. Again, these are ideas that need to be kind of validated, but there are strategies in place that may help us fight, so to speak, or at least return to a new normal closer at some point in time.
You obviously have treated some COVID-19 patients, I'm assuming. What do you do with them when you have somebody who is positive and is in the hospital?
Well, we try and get a sense of what their symptoms are, how long they've been having their symptoms, and the degree of disability or severity from that. And so, a lot of the care from a respiratory perspective is what we call supportive care. There's no magical drug, despite what we're reading about in social media and conventional media. So a lot of it is supportive care with oxygen, making sure that their other comorbidities or other ailments are also optimized as best possible. And then if they, heaven forbid, were to become severely ill, then we have additional measures such as ventilators, which you've also read about in the media as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing right now while we're waiting for clinical trials to help us sort out are there any other available treatments.
When this first broke and you were hearing stories about the virus when it was in the Wuhan province and slowly coming over to North America, what level of fear did you have?
Well, when I first heard about this, and I'm going back to January, the immediate thought that came to my mind was wow, this is somewhat reminiscent of SARS. And so the initial thought was that, well, let's see how this transpires, but I would never have imagined it coming to the scale that we're seeing it today. So I thought there would have been containment, but obviously the story has not followed that path.
We have reached break time here on this Tuesday edition of Cogeco News. It is National Volunteer Week, and today we recognize Derek Lindeman. But first, a very short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cogeco News. Yes, this week is National Volunteer Week, and here at Your TV North Bay, our volunteers are the lifeblood of our station. All week long, we will feature interviews with our valued volunteers. Today, we check in with Derek Lindeman, who has volunteered with us since the fall of 2015. We are very pleased to be joined by the jack of all trades, Mr. Derek Lindeman, volunteer extraordinary. From politics to sports, your coverage and dedication to our station has been incredible. Bring us back to your first experience volunteering here at Your TV.
Well, my first experience was working the North Bay Battalion games. I had the pleasure of starting off on corner cam, doing the interviews, and it was quite the experience. It was a great way to keep myself involved in the game of hockey.
Now, how did you find out about Your TV?
Well, knowing I was working with Jennifer Rusi, Joey Rusi's wife, and I had always been bugging her that if Joey ever needed a volunteer for battalion games, let me know, and I want to step up and just get involved behind the production of a hockey broadcast.
Now, you've transitioned to in front of the camera as well. What learning curve was that like?
It was quite the experience. A lot of the experience came from being on that corner cam, doing the interviews, and watching people like yourself and Matt Sukram doing the interviews, and just paying attention to what you guys do to get prepared to be in front of that camera.
Talk about the social aspect of volunteering. You're not in a dark office or a cubicle. You are in the community. You're meeting new people every single time you are out. What's it like, the social factor of volunteering?
The social factor, that's one of the major reasons why I like to get out and volunteer with Your TV. I've continued friendships with a lot of the people I volunteered with. I've created work relationships with them. the great people, the battalion commentators such as Ranjan Rupal. I visit, I'm at his pharmacy. Greg DeVers, I stay in contact with. Even with Chris Robinson, he's been setting up volunteer appreciation nights, game days at the studio, watching hockey games. It's just an atmosphere, and the people are so great at your TV.
Now, life will return to normal eventually. It's just a matter of time. And when it does, what are you looking forward to doing the most in terms of volunteering? You've done beach volleyball, you've done curling, you've done election nights, you've done studio shows. What do you want to do next?
Just keep doing it, volunteering. You know what? It's so much fun. I get to give back to this community of stuff that I like to do. I like to be out there and involved. It doesn't matter what event it is. It's always a blast being around the other volunteers and just learning all the time from such professional people.
Well, you deserve every bit of recognition during this National Volunteer Week. Derek, we salute you. We thank you. Thanks for all your hard work.
No problem, Clark. Have a good day.
Stay tuned for another Spotlight tomorrow. Last Friday, local artist and Your TV show host Marianne Vanderduzen hosted a special online art class. Vanderduzen asked for voluntary donations from participants to aid the North Bay Regional Health Center and its foundation. On Friday afternoon, the total was just over $2,000. As of Monday night, it was close to $3,000. An exciting development for the artist who explains her love of art in this report.
So you want to be an artist, or at least get into art? Marianne Vanderduzen is into art. And no, she didn't start out wanting to be an artist. She wanted to be a teacher. Now she is teaching art.
How do I break down what it is that I do when, truthfully, no one broke down the concepts for me? Oh gosh, that's a tough question. It goes on to autopilot. It's the training from being a teacher plus just loving what I do, and combined, somehow I managed to teach. For me, my love of art is driven by a powerful connection to place. And I think that North Bay, Ontario is the most beautiful place in the whole world. And I've been fortunate to travel around a little bit, and that holds true no matter where I've been. This is home. And for me, when I look out my window, when I go on the trails, when I am just able to sit in the quiet of nature, it is so meaningful for me that to be able to go home into my studio and capture it in color is just, it's a cathartic experience. And I really love being able to enter into that state of flow where everything else just fades away, particularly in these kinds of situations where they are so desperate for so many people, and I like being able to invite people to join in that process with me.
Now, Vanderduzen does work with people in person, but she spends a lot of her time training people online. How exactly does that work?
I focus a lot on technique. So even though I'm not able to be there and sit with them and guide their brush, I do a lot of focusing on technique. And some of the things I hear is that I'm not a very good artist. I could never paint like you. Well, have you ever been shown? Often we don't necessarily teach art because we're afraid of stomping on people's creativity, but technique can absolutely be taught. Now, style is completely unique to the person doing it. I teach technique, I don't teach style, and that's why every painting turns out differently, which is good. You want them to turn out differently. But with technique, people can get better, they can develop confidence, and they can feel like they've bettered their craft somehow, even if they're total beginners.
And we have reached the time to take a look at our COVID information board for resources for you. Federally, canada.ca/COVID-19. Provincially, ontario.ca/coronavirus. Telehealth Ontario, 1-866-797-0000, and the health unit, myhealthunit.ca. We have reached break time here on this edition of Cogeco News. Our Greg Esterbrooks has an interesting choice for his headdress, a toque that he likely should retire and never wear again. All that and more right after this.
Weather is brought to you by Canadore College. Great things happen here.
Welcome back to weather, everybody. Greg Esterbrooks here. I feel like wishing people a Merry Christmas because it sure seems like it outside. Lots of snow again on the ground. Second time in 3 days we've been hit with snow. It's windy, it's cold, it's way below normal temperatures for this time of the year, and it's going to stay that way, especially at night for the next few days. Let us get to the 5-day forecast brought to you by Environment Canada and Canadore College. Mainly cloudy overnight on Tuesday. Small chance of a flurry in the evening and after midnight. Winds gusting to 50 from the northwest. Low of -8, the wind chill -8 this evening and -15 later on overnight. Clearing on Wednesday. Winds northwest 20, gusting to 40, then diminishing. High of 1 above. Wind chill -14 in the morning. UV index 6 or high. Clear overnight Wednesday and a low of -12. What's going on? Thursday, sunny and 5 above during the day. Overnight clear and -10. Friday, sunny and 7. Clear overnight Friday and 4 below. Saturday, sunny up to 8. Chance of a shower overnight on Saturday and a low of 1 above. The average high for this time of the year is 10. The average low is 0. On Monday, it was 7 and -9. Well, that is it for the weather, on this day. Clark Heipel has a complete sportscast for you right after this.
Sports is brought to you by Tag Construction for all your construction needs.
Welcome back to Cogeco News. No one knows when hockey will return. The NHL is in limbo, and even the OHL for next season is no sure thing. One thing seems to be sure: Battalion OHL top pick Ty Nelson seems to be ready. Check out those moves and that finish. What a move for the top overall pick. And he sent out this tweet yesterday, and it goes to the player and person and his focus for what lies ahead. A nice young man indeed. Meanwhile, the Battalion's second-round pick, Dallin Wakely, is also signed with the team. The 5-foot, 11-inch forward was taken 30th overall when most considered Wakely to be a top 10 pick. Whenever the Battalion season begins, these two youngsters will be a huge part of the club's present and future. Meanwhile, Oakville native Kevin Henstock wants to be part of that future. He is the Battalion first overall pick in the recent U18 draft. He joined Niagara OHL Tonight host Al Galloway as they talked hockey.
Thanks very much, and joined now by Kevin Henstock, who is a left winger who played last season in his midget season with the Oakville Rangers and grew up in the town of Oakville. And Kevin, you had the opportunity to get back into the OHL under 18 draft last year. Tell us about the experience of being selected first overall in that one.
Well, Yeah, first off, thanks for having me here, guys. I mean, getting drafted first overall was definitely an honor. Um, it was definitely really exciting to hear my name called first, and I know North Bay is a great spot, so I'm really excited to get up there and go to camp. And yeah, it's just really exciting to be drafted first.
And did Coach Ryan Houlihan have anything to say to you when you got a chance to speak to the team?
Well, I mean, prior to the draft, I talked briefly to their whole coaching staff, and they ran me through their program there, and it looks great. Definitely looks like a good spot, and yeah.
And you weren't selected in the OHL draft in your minor midget season, but you got to play for Mike Tarantino, who, of course, had a lot of junior experience coaching the Oakville Blades for a number of years, and including to a Buckland Cup championship and a Dudley Hewitt Cup championship. What kind of role did Mike play in you getting back into position where you could be drafted on second attempt into the OHL?
He was a great coach all year. I think what he did best is he took it seriously. Like, we're a midget program, but he treated us like junior players. So he kept us on board. Everyone had that goal in mind, although cut short. We all wanted to, go deep into playoffs. And, he was nice to us all year. He was a great coach. And that whole coaching staff with Mike, with Benty and Scott there, it was a great trio they had there, and they really helped us.
We'll be back live at 5 tomorrow for more Cogeco News. We'll see you then.